What you talking about, Willis?
And I sort of got it dirty. And I sort of put it in the washing machine.
You think the plaintiff want to be on time? You know what I'm saying? You know, y'all late.
Do you still remember these faces? Back in the 90s, American TV was filled with black child stars. Those adorable faces that made the whole world fall in love. One single line could steal the spotlight. One smile could make millions of families laugh every night. But sadly, Hollywood has never been a safe place for kids. Pressure, money, the dark side of fame. They all blended into one giant machine that crushed the childhoods of so many young stars. And then, one by one, these child stars disappeared, as if they never existed. No announcement, no explanation, just old YouTube clips and one haunting question: where are they now? In this video, we're going to trace the lives of 10 black child stars who once lit up Hollywood, then vanished as if their entire chapter was cut from memory. Are you ready? Because the stories you're about to hear will take you straight back to your childhood and pull back the curtain on secrets Hollywood tried to bury. Orlando Brown, Disney's prodigy, and the tragedy of a child star. Orlando Brown was born in 1987 in a neighborhood where you saw more police cars than kids playing outside. His mother always believed he had a gift for comedy, but it wasn't until he turned 6 that the world finally saw it. When he auditioned for Major Payne 1995, director Damon Wayans burst out laughing the moment he saw him. This kid is pure gold. That role opened his very first door. Within a few years, Orlando was everywhere. Family Matters, Two of a Kind, The Jaimee Foxx Show. Casting directors described him as a kid who literally couldn't give a bad performance. But by 2003, Orlando's life entered a new chapter, one the entire country would recognize. At the audition for That's So, Raven Orlando had the entire room laughing so hard they had to stop taping 3 different times. He landed the role of Eddie Thomas, the comedic heartbeat of Disney Channel. For all 4 seasons from 2003 to 2007, Orlando worked 12 to 14 hours a day. Eddie was carefree and funny, but Orlando himself was getting truly exhausted. That's when everything started to crack. He was only 16, 18, yet he was pushed under a workload that would crush an adult. Orlando became tired, burnt out, irritable, unable to focus. Disney documented countless incidents: Orlando missing call times, arriving late, even breaking down in tears before filming. And Disney hates one thing the most: an unstable child star. And when the final season of That's So Raven wrapped, they did what they always do. They left him behind. No new contract, no spin-off, no mental health support. Orlando walked out of the studio in 2007, and his life spiraled from there. The downward spiral: arrests, addiction, hallucinations. Right after Disney cut ties, Orlando fell into a void. Many child stars never escape no roles. No purpose, but the fame still lingers. And fame doesn't bring money, only pressure and expectations. In 2008, he was arrested for the first time for drug possession. In 2011, he was arrested for refusing to stop when police pulled him over. In 2012, he was accused of assaulting his girlfriend while she was pregnant, a scandal that practically erased his entire career. She claimed he attacked her during an argument. Orlando denied it, but witnesses were present. Police stepped in. Disney scrubbed Orlando's name from every piece of promotional material connected to That's So Raven. From that point on, he wasn't a star. He was someone Hollywood banned forever. California police ended up with an entire thick file on Orlando Brown. Between 2014 and 2016, he spiraled into chaos, breaking into acquaintances' homes, fights warrants. But what shocked the public most wasn't the arrests. It was his mental state. He appeared in live streams with glazed eyes, fragmented speech, jumping from topic to topic like someone hallucinating. One time, he made delusional claims about former co-stars. Another time, he shaved his head mid-live stream. The internet laughed. The media mocked him. Hollywood ignored him. The breaking point was his appearance on Dr. Phil. Orlando sat there with a crooked wig, dazed eyes, rambling incoherently. At one moment, he claimed he had 4 kids, then 2, then none, then 20. That was the moment America realized Eddie was gone. All that was left was someone crushed by trauma and addiction. But in the middle of that darkness, a small light appeared. In 2020, Rise Discipleship, a men's recovery and reintegration program in Texas, reached out and invited him to rehab. Orlando agreed almost at the lowest moment of his life. During 6 months at the center, he worked on sobriety, mental health treatment, and PTSD from his child star years. He relearned how to hold a normal conversation and even called his family to apologize. Orlando himself said, "I almost died. This is my last chance." So how is someone who once hit rock bottom living? Now, in 2025, Orlando Brown is no longer Disney's funny Eddie Thomas and no longer the internet disaster of 2016, 2018. Today, Orlando lives a completely different life. He left Los Angeles, left Hollywood, left everything that once drove him insane. He now lives in Ohio in a modest neighborhood with his wife Danielle Brown and their 3 kids. Sometimes he live streams, sells small merch, or gets support from fans. His finances are shaky, but he seems stable. And for someone who nearly died under the weight of Hollywood, that alone is a victory. But if you think Orlando's fall was bad, the next girl will leave you speechless. Her fall was even worse. Jaimee Foxworth, the Family Matters child star who fell into adult films. Do you remember little Judy Winslow from Family Matters with her soft curls and mischievous eyes that made you want to smile along? Jaimee was born in 1979 in Illinois, growing up in a family that struggled financially. Her parents lived off small, unstable jobs and were constantly fighting their way through bills. But they noticed something. Jaimee had expressive eyes, natural wit, and an incredible ability to memorize lines. Her mother, Gwen Fox, started taking her to small casting calls. At first, it was just commercials, then a few minor TV roles. But the turning point came in 1989, when 10-year-old Jaimee was cast in ABC's hit sitcom Family Matters. The role of Judy Winslow wasn't a big one. Judy was simply the youngest child in the Winslow family. But Jaimee's charm made the character more loved than the writers ever expected. Overnight, Jaimee went from an ordinary little girl to a face seen weekly by millions of viewers. Her family began living off Jaimee's TV salary, and that unintentionally put enormous pressure on a child who didn't understand money at all. The rise of Urkel and the historic staircase. Moment Family Matters was never supposed to be Steve Urkel's show. But once the character exploded in popularity, the ratings of the entire network basically depended on Jaleel White. To focus on the most beloved character in America at the time, producers began cutting back on non-essential roles. 11-year-old Jaimee Foxworth was on that list. She wasn't warned. Her family wasn't consulted. There was no final episode, no goodbye scene. Judy Winslow walked up the stairs and never came back. The producers didn't even give a real explanation. They simply said, "The script doesn't need Judy anymore." Jaimee was erased. Her family lost their only source of income. Jaimee lost the role that had supported her entire household. A child was fired by Hollywood because adults needed better business numbers. The New York Times once called it the coldest character removal in TV history, the dark years substances debt, and a dangerous industry. After leaving the show, Jaimee auditioned everywhere. But Hollywood doors don't open for child stars who were written out. In Hollywood, reputation matters more than talent. And the stigma of being the kid the show dropped followed her to every casting room. From 1994 to 1997, Jaimee was almost completely unemployed. Her family lost their income, moved from a house to a small apartment. The pressure tore her parents apart. They fought constantly. Jaimee, only 15-16 at the time, didn't know how to deal with the crushing guilt. At 19, drowning in debt, Jaimee made a desperate decision. She entered the adult film industry under the stage name Crave. People hear that and judge. But few know the truth. Her family was bankrupt. She was fighting undiagnosed depression. This was the only fast way to earn money to help her family. It wasn't a choice. It was the last resort of a teenage girl abandoned by Hollywood. From 2001 to 2003, Jaimee spiraled into heavy alcohol addiction, then marijuana, then meth. The media published her photos with mocking headlines, "Judy Winslow has fallen." No one asked why. No one asked if she needed help. Jaimee once said, "I felt like I had died at 20. In Hollywood's eyes, she was nothing but a scandal, a cheap story, choosing not to die and learning to fight again. One night in 2005, Jaimee drank so much she could barely breathe. When she woke up, she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. She said, "I can't die like this. I have to come back." Jaimee quit alcohol. She entered therapy, left the adult industry, cut off toxic relationships, and took manual jobs just to survive. She peeled off layers of fear and trauma that had clung to her for 10 years. In 2007, she became pregnant and gave birth to her son. The person, she says, gave her a reason to stay alive. Jaimee said, "My son saved me from myself." Today, Jaimee Foxworth lives a life very different from most former child stars. She never returned to Hollywood. She left the spotlight permanently. She chose a real life, raising her son, working part-time, supporting people with addiction, and speaking about mental health. Jaimee occasionally appears in documentaries warning about the dark side of the child entertainment industry. Jaimee Foxworth is one of the clearest examples of how cruel show business can be to children. She disappeared from the show, but she never disappeared from the public's memory. The next name is a tragedy on an entirely different scale. Gary Coleman, the most famous black child star in history, whose life was exploited to death. If you had to pick the most widely recognized black child star in American history, that name would unquestionably be Gary Coleman. The tiny kid with bright eyes and the iconic line, "What you talking 'bout, Willis?" became a full-blown cultural phenomenon in different strokes. Gary was so famous, he had a wax figure at Madame Tussauds standing next to A-list stars of the era. But the laughter Gary brought to the world hid a painful truth. He was a child brutally exploited by his own family. Gary was born in 1968 with a congenital kidney disease. He underwent multiple surgeries as a small child and spent his entire life dependent on medication. The illness stunted his growth, leaving him at around 142 even as an adult. Despite his fragile health, Gary was forced to work non-stop 12 to 14 hours a day, and the millions he earned became the primary income stream for his parents and manager. When he turned 18, Gary checked his finances for the first time, and that moment destroyed him. He discovered his accounts were almost empty. The $20–30 million he should have had adjusted to today's inflation was gone. It had vanished into the pockets of his parents and manager, the same people who claimed they had sacrificed everything for him. Gary sued them in 1989. Gary won. But that victory couldn't return the childhood stolen from him or the trust that had been shattered forever. When Different Strokes ended, Hollywood had no idea what to do with Gary. His childlike appearance, his unchanged height, his medical complications, and his child star image made it nearly impossible for him to grow into adult roles in the public's eyes. Gary's life began to collapse. No new roles, no Hollywood support. He fell into bankruptcy, battled severe depression, was mocked for his height, and was torn apart by gossip tabloids and cruel public judgment. Multiple reports say Gary had to take odd jobs working as a mall security guard, a souvenir shop clerk, even a parking lot attendant, just to survive. He became entangled in domestic disputes, conflicts, arguments, even physical altercations with his wife, destroying whatever remained of his beloved child star image. In a late interview, Gary said a sentence that chilled America. "I never had a childhood. Hollywood took everything from me and left me with nothing." On May 28, 2010, Gary Coleman died from a brain hemorrhage. He was only 42. No money, no family by his side, no fame left. His death shocked America, but after the shock faded, people moved on to another story. Only older generations remembered the tiny child star who once made them laugh and wondered whether any star had ever been treated more cruelly by Hollywood. Gary Coleman was the tragedy of a child stripped of everything before he even had a chance to grow up. But Hollywood doesn't have just one kind of tragedy. Some kids are destroyed not by exploitation, but by fame itself. And the next person is the clearest example of that. Kel Mitchell, the Nickelodeon icon, whose life fell into addiction. In the late 90s, Kel Mitchell became America's laughter machine on Nickelodeon. On Kenan and Kel, Kel was the soul of the show. The constant head shake, the high-pitched voice, the mischievous eyes, and the natural comedic timing. The whole country knew him as the kid obsessed with orange soda. But behind every laugh was a child who wasn't allowed to be tired. Kel was only 16-17 years old, yet working at the pace of a full-grown actor. From 2000 to 2003, Nickelodeon decided to wipe out its old shows to build a new generation of stars like Drake Bell, Josh Peck, Miranda Cosgrove. The shows connected to Kel were canceled, the Good Burger brand faded, and teen comedy entered a different era. And then the worst happened. Hollywood no longer had a place for Kel Mitchell. His co-star Kenan Thompson was chosen by SNL and became a legend. Kel stood alone for the first time in his life. No stage, no laughter, no one calling his name. And that's when the black hole pulled him in. Addiction, where the downfall began. When his career collapsed, Kel entered his 20s with a void no one could fill. Kel admitted that from 2004 to 2006, he started using substances to keep his mind quiet. Kel got married in 1999, right in the middle of his Nickelodeon fame. By 2005, the marriage had exploded. Kel's heavy addiction and personality changes accusations of infidelity from both sides, arguments over their children, and legal tension that dragged on for nearly 2 years. In the divorce filings, his ex-wife described Kel as unable to control his behavior, easily agitated, and lost. By the time the divorce was finalized in 2006, Kel had completely collapsed. In 2011, Kel went through the darkest period of his life. He stood on the balcony of his LA apartment looking down at the street. "I thought all the pain will end." He didn't make a reckless decision. He called the one close friend he still had and then voluntarily entered rehab and intensive therapy for more than 8 months. Kel got sober-treated PTSD caused by early fame and relearned how to live, think, and exist. By 2025, Kel's life is entirely different. He has been clean for over 10 years, remarried, and has a stable family. Kel even became a pastor and speaker, helping teenagers, speaking openly about depression and addiction to prevent young people from repeating his mistakes. Kel didn't return to the top, and he doesn't want to. He only takes small roles in Good Burger 2 and Nickelodeon reunion shows. Kel Mitchell no longer has the childhood spotlight, but he has something many former child stars never get: a life that didn't end in a grave. Unlike Kel, the next name actually did end in a grave. Literally. Lee Thompson Young, the Disney prodigy. With one of the decade's most haunting endings. If you ever watched the famous Jet Jackson, you'll remember a boy with bright eyes and a gentle smile. Lee Thompson Young wasn't just popular, he was a Disney icon in the late 90s. A rare black child star with a lead role seen as a representative of black teens in the early 2000s. But the brighter the spotlight shined on him, the darker the shadow on Lee's real life became. After the success of Jet Jackson, Lee moved on to Friday Night Lights, Scrubs, Rizzoli, and Isles. He worked hard, had no scandals, no substance issues, no tabloid drama. One of Hollywood's rare clean stars. But that quiet exterior hid something no one in the world could see: a psychological battle happening entirely inside his mind. For years, Lee endured severe depression, but he never spoke about it. Not to friends, not to colleagues, not even to family. He lived with professional smiles, polite thank yous, flawless public appearances, and hid all his pain at night. On August 19, 2013, Lee Thompson Young ended his life in his Los Angeles apartment. He was only 29, no suicide note, no explanation, only shock across Hollywood. After his passing, his family revealed that Lee had silently battled mental illness for many years, but was never diagnosed and never treated. What made his death so haunting was this: no one, not even those closest to him, realized how deeply he was hurting. Lee became one of Hollywood's tragic symbols, a star shining so brightly it hid the fractures inside his own soul. Those were the old tragedies of Hollywood, but the modern tragedy that belonged to someone once called Hollywood's golden child, Jaden Smith, Hollywood's prodigy and the most bizarre icon of Gen Z. The moment young Jaden Smith cried in the final scene of The Pursuit of Happiness. 2006, the entire country went silent. An 8-year-old performing with the rawness of a stripped soul. A level of honesty that made Hollywood nod. This kid is a genius. Jaden wasn't a typical child star. He entered Hollywood through its biggest gate, the son of Will Smith, with a path straight to the Oscars blockbuster's global fame. After the film with his father, Jaden became one of Hollywood's most sought-after child actors. In 2010, he starred in the $40 million remake, The Karate Kid. The movie became a massive global box office hit over $350 million. At 12 years old, Jaden became the youngest action star in the world. Will Smith pushed his son's image into being a multi-talented star. Jaden appeared in Justin Bieber's Never Say Never music video Wrapped, wrote music, became a teen fashion icon. Jaden became a Gen Z symbol in the early 2010s. Big hair leather jackets, skateboards, prodigy energy. But that was the last moment where he still seemed normal. Because starting in 2013, Jaden's public image took a strange turn. The downward shift. Jaden started posting tweets no one could decipher. How can mirrors be real? If our eyes aren't real. School is the tool to brainwash the youth. America called him the Prince of Weird Tweets. From 2014 to 2017, paparazzi repeatedly captured Jaden looking thin, frail, exhausted, stumbling around at Coachella. He was always seen partying with chaotic artist circles. Hollywood whispered, Jaden must be on something. The family denied it, but the public could see that Jaden was not okay. The older he got, the more Jaden Smith became a puzzle no one could solve. One day, he showed up on the red carpet wearing a white Louis Vuitton dress, posing like it was completely normal. Then came the biggest shock. In the middle of the Grammy stage, Jaden grabbed a mic and shouted to millions watching that Tyler, the Creator, is my boyfriend, despite Tyler clearly not knowing what was happening. By then, Hollywood had only one question left: Jaden Smith. What on earth is he doing? In 2017, Jaden released the album Sire as his independence manifesto. It was hyped heavily with huge visuals and fancy promotion, but the reality was the opposite of expectations: no hits, low sales. The internet bluntly said, he's famous because he's a Smith, not because of his music. From 2020 to 2024, the Smith family plunged into scandal. Jada Pinkett's entanglement, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars, and public criticism that the kids were spoiled, undisciplined, and directionless. Jaden was caught in the narrative of being raised without structure or boundaries. Many psychologists analyzed Jaden as the victim of too much freedom. No discipline, no guardrails, no stabilizing environment. The result, a talented child star drifting without direction. By 2025, Jaden Smith is still a big name, but only in the sense that everyone knows who he is. Not because of his acting, but because the Smith family is a large enough cultural brand to keep his name on the map, even without mainstream achievements. He's still wealthy, expected to inherit $100 million from his family, plus income from his Just Water business. But clearly Jaden is no longer an actor. Not a major rapper either. At 27, Jaden Smith has become a strange phenomenon, famous but unsuccessful, visible but not shining rich, but without any real artistic legacy. A child who once had everything, but by 2025 is only the eccentric shadow of who he used to be. Marcus T. Paulk, from sweet child star to one of the darkest rap sheets of the 2010s. Marcus came out of Moshe, 1996, 2001, like a phenomenon. Anyone who grew up in the 90s knew him quick-witted, smart, funny America's little brother on screen. But when the series ended, the spotlight on Marcus faded with it. And this is the story you see with many child stars. When the cameras stop rolling, real life begins. And it's far harsher. When Moesha ended, Marcus entered age 14-15 without any management system to keep him grounded. The breaking point came in 2012 when Marcus was arrested after assaulting his girlfriend so badly she had to be hospitalized. Los Angeles police described the victim's injuries as visible and significant, and Marcus admitted the two had argued violently. He was charged with misdemeanor domestic violence, and the scandal destroyed the good kid image Marcus had built throughout his childhood. But it didn't stop there. In 2013, Marcus was arrested again for DUI. His Mercedes-Benz crashed into another car, shattering what little remained of his already fragile career. Hollywood stopped calling. From a once famous child star, he became someone who appeared in tiny cameo roles and then vanished from the radar. Marcus later admitted in a rare interview by 2025, he still shows up occasionally in indie films and small events. But the glow of his Moesha days is nothing more than a memory. A good memory that opened a life Marcus himself couldn't hold on to. Some children don't fall because of their mistakes, but because the spotlight burned them out by age 3. Raven-Symoné, America's sweetheart, who was drained dry from age 3. If you grew up in America in the 90s or early 2000s, Raven-Symoné is a name you'll never forget. At age 5, Raven played Olivia Kendall on The Cosby Show. Her cuteness made the entire country fall in love with her. But behind the spotlight, Raven always felt like she was working as an adult. When Disney cast Raven as the lead in That's So Raven, 2003-2007, she became America's #1 teen star. The show was a massive hit, placing Raven in Disney history as one of the most iconic child stars ever. But that was exactly when Raven began to break. The pressure to be perfect under Disney was enormous. She was controlled strictly her weight, her appearance, the way she spoke, the image she presented. Raven revealed she fell into depression because of body comments coming from Disney brand managers themselves. She said, "They told me I was too fat for TV. I was 15. That was the first blow to her self-esteem. After That's So, Raven ended. Raven left Disney, not because she ran out of work, but because she wanted to survive. She stepped away from Hollywood for a long time, almost disappearing from the screen. Years later, when asked why, she said she needed to rebuild her mind because fame and being exploited since childhood had warped her sense of self. When she returned, Raven shocked the public with several controversial statements. The biggest was on Oprah. "I'm American. I'm not African American." The Black community reacted intensely. Raven was accused of self-erasing, denying her heritage. She had to clarify that she meant she didn't want to be labeled, but the backlash followed her for years. By 2025, Raven has returned as a host, doing light acting and producing Raven's Home. But now she's no longer Disney's puppet. She married Miranda Madej, lives stable and calm. Raven-Symoné in 2025 is no longer little Olivia Kendall, no longer Raven Baxter. She is a grown woman who understands exactly how deeply she was hurt and is finally living a life she spent 3 decades trying to reclaim. Raven got the chance to rebuild. But the next person wasn't so lucky. They were destroyed, not by scandal, but by their own mind. Lark Voorhies, the 90s teen icon, who fell apart when her mind turned against her. In the 90s, Lark Voorhies was the high school goddess. On Saved by the Bell, she was the dream girl of millions. Radiant, smart, sweet, a full-on pop culture icon of her generation. But that beauty couldn't save her from an invisible enemy, mental illness. In 2012, her mother revealed that Lark had schizoaffective disorder. Lark denied it, but her public appearances told another story. Vacant eyes, fragmented speech, facial tremors, and social media posts filled with paranoia. From a teen goddess, Lark became a ghost of her former self, the part that broke America's heart the most. Hollywood doesn't know how to handle child stars with mental illness. Instead of helping, they quietly stepped away. Lark became isolated, lost contact with colleagues, tried doing her own PR, self-published books, all criticized for being incoherent. Her vibrant youth became a memory. Her present is a daily battle with a condition that took everything, including herself. It wasn't until the 2020 reunion that viewers saw a glimpse of her again. But it was only a small ray of light in a story filled with darkness. The next story is yet another kind of tragedy. When you become so famous, Hollywood refuses to let you grow up. Taj Mowry, smart guy, the sitcom prodigy, destroyed by being too famous to grow up. Taj Mowry was once Disney's prodigy, the genius kid in Smart Guy, a guest star in Full House Kim. Possible Are We There Yet? The whole country called Taj a kid prodigy, and that label became the cage that locked his future. When a child star is too talented, too impressive, they get trapped forever inside the very spotlight that made them famous. After 1999, Taj tried to transition into adult roles and failed repeatedly. You're a prodigy, but we need a man. No one wanted to pay to watch Smart Guy grown up. Hollywood wanted the memory, not the adult version. Taj starred in Baby Daddy for years, but still couldn't escape his childhood shadow. From 2010 to 2020, Taj practically disappeared from television. No scandals, no addiction, no drama. Just no one needed Taj anymore. A quiet tragedy, but far more brutal, being forgotten in silence while no one notices, no one mentions your name. And no one understands that childhood fame was the very thing that killed your adult career. Today, Taj focuses on music and independent production, living peacefully far from the spotlight that once put him on top. Hollywood created these child stars, but Hollywood is also the place that crushed them faster than anywhere else. From Nickelodeon laughs to Disney's bright lights to 90s sitcom charm, every child in these stories once brought joy to millions. Yet when the cameras shut off, when ratings dropped, when scripts stopped calling their names, they were left to fight something fame never teaches: how to keep living as a normal human being. Some fell into addiction. Some collapsed under mental illness. Some were exploited by their own families, drained by Hollywood. And some disappeared forever. But no matter which path they took, they all leave behind one chilling truth: the brighter the spotlight, the deeper the darkness behind it. And the children who once made America laugh were the ones who carried the most pain. Which child star do you remember the most? Comment down below. If you want to keep exploring the secrets hiding behind Hollywood fame, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. There are so many untold stories ahead, and we'll meet these legends again in the next chapter.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.